everybody. Welcome to the Perfectly Blended Podcast, Season 4, Episode 22. We're back from the Caribbean, number 1. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the top 5 tips for newly blended families, and that's coming up
right now.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Perfectly Blended Podcast. This podcast is for blended families, for couples that want to strengthen their marriage and want a brighter future. Perfectly Blended exists to break the stigma of divorce, drop the shame and guilt holding you back, and equip marriages to thrive instead of just survive. We believe all that is possible in this life is based on the power of Jesus Christ and His ability to restore us fully. Let's dive in. What is up? What is up? Hi, Mrs. Lindstrom. It's nice to see words of your typing, not really your face. What's up, Cassie? We are back. We are back from, it felt like a month of vacationing, but we didn't want to come back because it was so wonderful. Was it wonderful, babe?
Yeah. I need to live somewhere where it's warm all the time. What is not fair, though, is him and I, look at his face, look at my face. Okay, we got the exact amount of sun. We did the exact amount of things. There was never a time that we were apart unless we were going number 2. You know, we don't do that. We don't do that together. But that's inside. That's not outdoors. We still got the exact amount of sun, all this stuff. And look at how dark he is compared to me. I get that I'm dark. I'm tan. You know, I went back to work today and people were like, whoa, you got some sun. He looks like this, the color of his shirt.
Yeah.
It's
easy. Less wrinkles for you, she says. See? That's a benefit.
Stacey's always looking out for positives for me.
She is. She's good for that.
That's why. But it's like I basically have a nice like sun-kissed glow. Josh looks like he was deep fried, on a frying pan.
That does not sound like a good thing. Okay,
so that's how much color he has.
That does not sound like that's a good, wonderful thing for me. I look deep fried, she said. That is.
He was put in a frying pan and he was flipped over a few times.
Why? I'm a grilled cheese. At this point, she's calling me a grilled cheese sandwich, which is bad. Is that a compliment? Right. I know, Cassie, I know, right? Haha, deep fried. I know. My wife is basically calling me a deep fried tomato, which is not fair. And I told her it's not my fault. Like, I have deep root, like little baby pieces of amounts of Native American. And I mean, I'm talking a fragment of a fragment of a fragment. But the good thing is that I don't really burn. So it takes a lot for me to be in the sun to get any type of burn at all. I will though, like my nose got a little burnt. Like I can feel it a little bit today. It's kind of peeling just a touch, but you're rolling your eyes.
So in San Juan, we tanned, we went to the tanner before we went.
We did. Yep.
And when we got to San Juan, we were out there for 1 day and I burned. My shoulders burned.
You did.
So we went down to the local CVS. They had a CVS right down the road from our hotel, which most places in San Juan don't open until 10 a.m.
Yeah, that was strange. Was that not weird?
Because they believe in appropriate life balance.
Right.
So we went down.
I don't think that's it, but I don't know what it is.
I believe that. So we went down there and, in Michigan, the most that you can see is SPF 50, I think. I think I've ordered online before, like an SPF 60. I don't know.
Yeah.
But multiple brands and kinds, and even CVS kind of SPF 100.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, we bought it. And I'm telling you right now, I put it on my shoulders that were burnt, and the sun does not penetrate.
That's true. It didn't.
It doesn't. And that's why my face didn't get as dark as his, because I was putting SPF 100 on my face because I didn't want my nose to get burnt.
You should have put it on your nose, though.
I didn't think about it.
No,
I'd spray it on my hands and then I'd pat it on my face.
Yeah.
My legs are super dark, though. And I told Josh, I'm like, I want to be able to look down all the time and see tan legs.
Gams. Such a weird word.
I said that while we were on vacation. I'm like, yeah, I got some nice gams.
You do have nice gams, though. And now they're all tanned up gams.
It's just different.
Yeah.
But anyway, tanning, when you're tan, you get sun. It's good for you.
Yeah, it was beautiful, though. The whole trip was beautiful. It really was. It was an awesome time. You know,
Yeah.
and it's really funny. So before we even get started into this, you know, if you had an opportunity to watch our last episode, which was only 15 minutes, we actually were hoping to upload it at the appropriate time, but we
We
really
even
didn't have,
paid for internet on the ship, and it's not worth it.
but the service was just really, really bad. Like it was just right. So we know now, right? So we
Yeah.
know that we won't do it that way next time. But so we did do an episode, the last episode, episode 21 of season 4. If you get an opportunity to watch that one, and because we talk a little bit about some early struggles that we had early on our trip. Well, you know, if you did get an opportunity to watch it, you know, we kind of shared a little bit about how Christy was really struggling the first day and a half on our cruise. Did that struggle continue?
No, it didn't. And I actually got used to it. And like your brain it's just amazing because a lot of people call that conforming too. So you have to be careful because, you know, sometimes you're like, no, this isn't right. This is injustice. And then you get used to something being an injustice and you don't complain about it anymore. Not that a rocking boat is an injustice, but in my defense, the first night that we went into the spa, the water really was going
It was whooshing a little bit.
And every time we went in there after that, it wasn't doing it to that extreme. It was doing it a little. So it was really rocking that first day, even with my little behind the ear things in. But after a while, you do get used to it and you don't think about it anymore. I mean, when him and I were sitting there for dinner every once in a while, if I felt a woo, you know, my brain would try to be like, oh my gosh, you know, something bad's going to happen. And I literally would have to concentrate on that thought and say, no, you're not going to think that. You're going to focus on this and make it better, which helped with my flying experience too. I was a lot better than I have been before when it comes to flying.
Oh, you were night and day compared to how you were.
Yes. So even without the use of medicinal help, I was better. Like for the takeoff and the
not
landing.
marijuana. Just so everybody's clear on that.
No, I don't know.
Everybody relates everything medicinal to like some type of marijuana.
No.
Yeah.
No, my doctor gave me something for anxiety, and so I really didn't want to use it because I haven't, you know, taken any type of prescription pill in so long since I've stopped drinking and stopped everything with all of that stuff.
Yep.
And so I really did want to do the takeoff. I wanted to do the land. I wanted to do those things and just tell myself that it was going to be okay. Work through it. And I did a really good job. So.
No, you did a fantastic job. You guys have to understand, like, if you've ever flown to Puerto Rico, unless we flew out of Detroit, Michigan, we didn't. We wanted to fly out of Flint, which was closest to our home. And so you can't go straight from Flint to Puerto Rico, right? That's a long flight. I mean, that would have been close to a 6-hour flight. And on the way down, we kind of chopped it up to North Carolina. You know, it was about halfway mark and then halfway. So it was, 2.5, 3.5 each flight. On the way home, we ended up getting a canceled flight. So we got an extra day in Puerto Rico, which was nice. But they flew us directly from Puerto Rico all the way to Chicago.
Which they should have just brought us to Flint.
Yeah. So it was like really like it was a far flight. It was almost a 5-hour flight. So she had to sit on a plane for 5 hours. And you did really, really well, though.
Yeah.
It was really funny. So when she did take some of her stuff to help her with her anxiety, she got kind of sleepy and she was fighting it. It was so funny. It reminded me of like a 2-year-old trying to fight a nap. And she's just like forcing her eyes to stay open.
Because I had to be awake for when emergency happens.
Right. And so I'm like, you need to sleep. Like, what are you doing? She was fighting it like one eye open and stuff. So it was kind of funny. So my point of even bringing that up was that, we really talked it through, we really worked on trying to, calm her nerves and just let her be able to just do her own thing. And, she prayed about it. We talked a lot about it. And then, the next day she woke up and she felt good and never looked back.
About the ship you're talking about.
About the ship. Yeah. About the ship, about your nerves and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we ended up having an amazing time. So it ended up working out really, really well. So if you have an opportunity to watch last episode, this will make a lot more sense to you, so you can go back.
Yeah, because I just got used to it and wanted to focus on the end goal, which our end goal was to have a good time while we were there and to have fun and and focus on that. And we did a lot of fun things. We played a lot of fun games. We did a painting class. It was fun.
On the boat, yeah. Lots of cool, awesome stuff. I wish we could talk this whole episode just about the things we did. But
no one cares.
Yeah, you don't care. So what we do want to talk about today, though, is, the top 5 tips for newly blended families. And I think it's really important that maybe you're not a newly blended. Maybe you're not blended yet. Maybe you're looking to get into a blended family and you have concerns, which is rightful. I mean, you should. We all have concerns and, don't know what you don't know. And then if you're newly blended, or maybe you've been blended for a while now and you're struggling, all 5 of these things were really, if you really pay attention to what we say about them and how to apply them to your own, family, you can see the value in them. So we just really hope that this is value to you today.
Yeah, it will be.
It will be. All right. So the first thing,
It only will be if you want it to be.
That's right. First tip is you have to go slow to go fast. What's Ron Deal say?
Crock pot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the crock pot, not microwave.
Yeah.
And Josh and I, when we first got together, we definitely microwaved our family.
Yeah.
No, it's all ended up. It's all ended up fine now.
Yeah.
But the road and the process probably would have went a lot smoother, a lot less bumpy if we would have allowed it to crock pot. So you have to give your family time to adjust. And, Ron Deal talks about there's like mini families within your blended family. And the mini family is like with ours, it was Josh and his 2 kids and me and my 2 kids. Our blended family even has a little bit of a different nuance even than other blended families because Josh's daughter, who she considers him her dad, she also has a biological dad. He's not her biological dad.
Right.
So his ex-wife is her mom, so he's not biologically related to her at all. So
have no legal rights at all.
Yes. So we also had taken consideration like her biological dad would cause some drama sometimes in our life too. And so we had, instead of giving it time, we were trying to put us all together and say, we're all a unit, we're all a family, which is what you want the end goal to be. But in the beginning, you can't be doing that because the kids have their own feelings and own things that they need to work through.
Definitely.
The kids always want their mom and dad together. And, when you get together, especially after you get married, it's just a nail in a coffin for them. And they're little people, they're little they're a little adult, only that they don't know how to emotionally process the feelings that they're feeling, which is okay and perfectly natural. And that is where the biological you are supposed to come in and help them process those feelings and say it is okay that they feel the way that they feel, and that is normal that they're feeling that way, and they're upset that that you got a new person, and am I supposed to think of them as a dad, or it's you have to help them because they don't know how to do that. And they're looking to you for the guidance. And if you're so focused on like, you can't talk that way, or you can't feel that way, or you have to feel this way, it really causes damage to them emotionally and psychologically. And obviously God can fix anything and things can be reversed, but we did it wrong in the beginning. And so also after hearing about Ron Deal's analogy of crock pot versus microwave, we've kind of adapted that verbiage because it is true. You have to let everybody simmer and be their own little ingredients in your family and add their flavor when it's time for them to add their flavor.
Yeah, when I think of, go slow to grow fast, number one, every blended family wants to grow quickly. Like we want to come together because
we're going to blend quickly.
Christy and I loved each other, right? And so now we're like, everybody else is going to love each other and this is going to work great and we're going to be happy. And, we both were miserable before. So now this is going to fix everything and everything's going to be great.
Right.
And when I think of go slow to grow fast, I think of, we have to really adjust our expectations. Like we have to really understand the truth of really what we're getting ourselves into, because when we think of growing fast and things coming together, it just doesn't work that way. The harder you try, the worse it gets actually. When we really try hard, super hard to really make things work, it seems like it just gets messier. So, it's really a slow process and you have to have an expectation that this is going to take time. Like It will take time. There is no miracle formula that you're going to get and it's going to make everything work great, where all the kids are going to love each other. All everything's just going to work out. The exes are all going to be singing and humming and everything's great. It just doesn't work that way. So setting your expectations correctly in the beginning and saying this will take a while, and however long it takes, we're just going to keep taking it one step at a time, and we're going to do this until it does come together. And that's the right attitude to have. So we want it to grow fast, and the only way to do that is to go slow.
Well, I think part of the issue is I see on Facebook and things like that a lot where people will share, like there's one specific meme that shows the back of a child, that says the child's name. And then there's a mom and dad on each side of them, and then another mom and dad on each side of them. And then one says mom And then on the guy next to her, it said stepdad on the back. And then next to the other side, it says dad. And then next to that person, it says stepmom. And then there's these big, long stories. And then people are about how amazing they are and they all get along. And it's all about the kids and all this stuff. And people are like, this is the way it should be. And we get so caught up in the shoulds, like this should be this way, that we get focused on like trying to make sure the ex is acting as if they would be in this picture and your spouse is acting the way they would be in this picture. Instead of just accepting and loving your family the way that it is and allowing the people in your family to be the people and letting go of the things you can't control and being a Christian and doing the best that you can and accepting that God put you in where you are now and letting it go slow and accepting and having patience. We get caught up in these things that we see saying, this is the way it should be. This is our goal. And when it's not, the ex sucks or my spouse sucks or, you know, all this stuff. And it's just not true. That picture that you see is the perfect picture. And I guarantee you that picture is not that way. And it is not always that way. And that was a good day at that time because everybody was in a good mood that day. You know, it's unrealistic to think that way. You have to allow your family to go slow to go fast, but also love it for that reason and not have this picture in your head that I need it to be this way or it's not right, which is not true.
Yeah, no, we have this ideal, this whole Facebook highlight, you know, social media highlight or, you know, idea in our minds of like how things are supposed to be. Like we really do, right? We believe in our hearts, like we left the problem. If, you know, unfortunately you've gotten divorced and, you know, you're into a new relationship now, we feel like we left the problem behind. All the good times are ahead. And that is just so untrue. There is good times ahead and things can be great, but you have to have healthy expectations of how it all comes together because it's not all highlight reels. It just doesn't work that way. And the better you can be real with yourself and saying, okay, this is going to be bumpy, but we're going to communicate through this. We're going to stay strong through this. And we're going to just take our time through it. The happier you are, the more highlight reels you do get to experience through that. Otherwise you just feel miserable all the time.
No, there was a great quote, and I'll look it up when Josh is talking and see if I can find it. But what's that movie that we've watched that has Ashton Kutcher in it and Brittany Murphy? What's the name of that movie?
Like Just Married or something, I think.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
And so he goes and visits his dad because they got in a fight about something. And his dad brings out a photo album of them. And man, it's such a good quote. And he says something like, it's the stuff in between that makes a relationship work. It's the arguments and the compromises that get you from one happy snapshot to the next. And those aren't the things you see in photo albums. And it's the same for social media. You don't see that stuff on social media. And it's awesome that I do feel like social media should be for positivity. And people shouldn't be sharing like, oh, let's talk about our fight on social media and let's share our angry photos of each other, you know, and all these things. It should be something that connects people and is positive, but we also have to remember it's real life behind the scenes that gets us from one happy photo to the next. It's not like that all the time. And if we have that expectation our life should be, that is, I mean, Jesus's life wasn't.
Right.
You know, and Jesus was perfect and God put him in this world and Jesus accepted the things that they were. So we just need reminders of that.
Yeah, we have a way of seeing the end of all the stories in the Bible and seeing all the victory in that.
Yeah.
You know, but then we forget to see how long it took and how slow that process was and how brutal it was along the way. And it's like we get to see the end and the result and it's like how awesome it is because there's hope in that. But we have to have a solid understanding and expectation of, you know, we got to take this easy. We got to go slow. So that's the first one. Go slow to go fast.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2 is priorities.
I like that little sound.
You do.
Yeah.
I know you do. You're so funny.
Priorities. Make your marriage a priority, but focus on the kids. And
slow it down and repeat that because it's really important that they understand that.
I was just going to elaborate on it.
Okay. You read it real fast.
Make your marriage a priority, but focus on the children. No, you guys need, in all seriousness though, your marriage does need to be a priority. Like you have to make sure that you both are on the same page above anything else,
Yeah.
you know, and that you guys have agreeances about things, even if it's I mean, Josh and I would talk about some things that we both wouldn't 100% agree, but we would be like, okay, we'll try it this way this time, and if it doesn't work, then we're going to do it this way. You know, we would have compromises, but we never talked like that in front of the kids. And you guys are there as a couple to raise the children, to teach them about God, to let them know that God should be the most important person in their life, the most important relationship, but to be good human beings, you know, and to be kind and to do the right thing and all of these things. And you guys should be on the same page, but then focusing your energy on nurturing your children and nurturing your family and nurturing that bond with them, to be pointing them in the right direction for their life. And that's why it's so important to have a relationship with Jesus, because if you just go out and talk to anyone in the world about what is a good person or what's the right thing to do and all these things, that's up to perception to that person. I mean, it's a relative term in our world. That's why the Bible is so utterly important, because when people come and want to ask you your opinion, well, what should I do in this instance? What would Jesus do? What would he want you to do? He wants you to do things with excellence and what he feels, not what the world says. So you do need to make a priority in your relationship to make sure that your spouse comes in your importance level, your priority level before the kids, but your priorities together should be the kids.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah, I think a big mistake, and we even did it in the beginning. For a long time, we did. You kind of get this whole shoot from the hip thing going on, right?
Yeah.
You know, there is no priorities. The only priority is we just want to be together.
Yeah.
And that is a horrible way to do it, because it's messy that way.
Yeah.
And there is no organization and there is no value in that. You know, it's like, oh, we'll just take one day at a time and we'll just do the best we can. And unfortunately, everything suffers when you try to do it that way. So understanding that, you know, having priorities and placing your priorities in the correct way makes a huge difference. You may not see the value in the first week or month, but in the long run, it makes everything work healthy. Making sure that God is at the center of everything that you do, including your marriage and your children and your family. Making sure that your spouse is the priority above all other things other than your relationship with God. And then saying, you know what, together, we're going to focus on these kids, because these kids are the ones that didn't choose to be here. We chose them to be here in this situation. And we did begin to do that. And that made a world of difference in our marriage,
Yeah,
and in our family as a unit itself. So, you know, set your priorities straight in the beginning. And if you haven't done it yet, sit down now and do it. Sit down with your spouse and say, hey, you know, we haven't made anything a priority. You know, let's start setting some priorities in this. And so we have something to go from instead of just shooting from the hip.
well, and what should have been one of our priorities, which is very important for blended families, is that the biological parent gets time with their biological children.
Yeah, we missed the beat on that.
In the beginning. And that is making your marriage a priority, that you guys talk about that first and say, okay, Wednesday nights or Thursday nights or whatever are going to be the night where you take your kids out for dinner. I take my kids out for dinner. And we have it could be a scheduled thing that you guys both agree on, so that the kids that's the way it bridges the relationship. You take your kids out, you ask them how they're feeling. They're going to be more comfortable telling you how they feel when it's just you and your kids, and asking them what they're feeling. Just because they don't like your relationship, if they don't like your relationship, doesn't mean they're wrong. If they don't like it, they don't like it. It's your job to help them overcome that. Like, why don't they like it? And, you know, oh, do they want mommy and daddy back together based on their age? Okay, let's talk about that in an age appropriate conversation. And, you know, we're sorry that that's not going to happen. Mommy and daddy still love you, all of those things. But help them understand, if you don't like them right away, that's okay. We have to respect them, though. They're part of our lives now. But if you're angry about it, that's normal to be angry. That will help bridge that actually faster than not getting the relationship. And that is making your relationship a priority and making a kid's priority through your relationship by deciding to do that.
Yeah, so I want to answer this to what Cassie just said. You know, basically she struggled because, you know, she didn't want it to be separate. She wanted one. And this is the problem.
That was us.
That was us. Okay. And this is the problem with that, because we didn't want jealousy, right? We didn't want, you know, to feel unfair to the kids.
Yeah.
We didn't want, you know, like my kids to think that, Christy cared more about her kids and
Yep.
all this stuff, right? We didn't want this, but we were wrong.
Yeah.
We were wrong. That was pride speaking, is all it was with us, right? We wanted to make sure that everybody felt equal. No, we wanted to make sure it felt equal. And that's a big difference than doing what's right by our children and what's right to make our family a better, stronger structure. And so we did that very wrong. And we were very immature in that decision that we had. And we didn't have any, we didn't look for guidance. We didn't look for advice. We just chose to do it that way because that's the way we wanted to do it. And it was wrong. And that's one of our biggest regrets.
Well, it is, but I didn't even think about it. Me personally didn't think about it because I came from a blended family and lots of different blended families. And I thought, like, don't make a division in the family. Like, you guys we need to function as a unit and all that stuff. So I really did feel like I was making the right decision. I didn't even think about it until I was reading Ron Deal's book, which our kids, that was just like 2 years ago. So our kids were basically almost all in their 20s, almost all adults already. And after I read it in his book, I'm like, okay, that is something that we missed huge because that made more sense to me then. In his book, he explains, like, your kids you're going to need to be the bridge for them to accept the step, the step brothers and sisters in the relationship or the step parent in their relationship because they trust you the most. And that made a lot of sense to me. And I didn't even think about it until I read that book. And then I'm like, wow. And now in my mind, when it came to that, the damage is already done. Like, our kids were already older. They weren't young. You just think maybe a year ago is when I read it, 2 years ago.
Yeah, probably a couple years ago.
They were like 16, 18, 19, and 23.
Yeah.
So they were already older. And that I have guilt over that, which now I have to work on letting go of that guilt. He has some guilt over the things that happened, when him and I first together with how we mashed the kids too. So it's important to slow down and talk things through. I think that's why number one is so important, to slow down, talk things through, because just because you make a choice to make your biological children a priority doesn't mean you're not making your marriage a priority. If you guys are deciding to do that together and understanding that that's the best thing for the family, that is making your marriage a priority because you both are in agreement, and it's making sure you're a united front. That when the kids come back and say, well, my dad said when we were out to dinner the other night that I don't have to respect you.
Yeah.
That's a lie.
Right.
Because you guys have had these discussions about, okay, when we take our kids out to dinner and we talk to them or we have alone time with them and they say, I'm mad or I'm upset, what's going to be our general consensus? You can't go word for word on everything that's going to be talked about. What's going to be our general consensus of what we're going to say? So we're both trying to be on the same page with our kids and our feelings and all this stuff. And then me afterwards to talk about what was discussed, what was said, how you said it, things like that. And it's just going to make your marriage stronger in the end, but also help your kids be more comfortable with the new situation that they're in and that they didn't have a choice. They really didn't have a choice.
No, that's why we worded it that way, though, with priorities, is make your marriage a priority, but focus on your children. A lot of times people think if you make your marriage a priority that you ignore the children. And I think that's just a super emotional, dramatic response to that saying.
Yeah.
And it's incorrect. And so, it's just really important that you understand, that your priorities need to be set straight and stick to them. And you guys need to come to an agreement on that in your marriage. It's really, really important. It was something we wish we'd have done earlier.
Yeah.
All right. Number three is you need to set up some healthy boundaries. You really do.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes with extended family, like as in your mom, your dad, your sisters or brothers, aunts, uncles, and with your dreaded ex.
Yeah. You might not be dreaded in your
not everybody has a dreaded. We had a couple of dreadeds.
It might not be dreaded in yours, but it's important whenever we say set healthy boundaries. A lot of people are like, they think like immediately like with their kids and stuff. And it's like, no, you need to set healthy boundaries for the people that affect your family that you're not going to be able to really have control or change over them. The only control or change you would have over them is how you let them affect your family.
Which is boundaries.
Which is the boundaries. So that's what we're talking about when we say that, because everyone, like we talked about earlier about the social media, about seeing this picture on social media of how a blended family should be. There's so many members of your family, and some of them might not even come from a blended family, and they're going to have all these great ideas of how your blended family should look or what the rules should be.
Yep.
It's like a person that's never had kids, and they're around someone that has a 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old child, and they're like, my kids would never do that. If I had kids, and they're like the perfect parent in their mind.
Yeah.
Because they don't have any.
Yep.
It's like that for blended families. If you're not part of a blended family, you really have no idea what you're talking about. But then also other blended families every blended family has different nuances. Some of the exes live out of state. Some of them live in state. Some people live with a parent, like their whole family lives with one side of the parents, or they have grandparents that are more involved, or they have aunts and uncles.
Yep.
Like there's so many different things, but you guys have to understand it's no different when a new mom has a baby. And it's like everyone comes out of the woodwork that's ever had a child ever. And they want to tell them the right way to handle the hiccups and diarrhea and tantrums, and if the baby colic, and you are the mom of that child. God has ordained you to be the mom of that child. So you ultimately, it's great to get advice and use it as information to help you, but it's ultimately your decision. It's no different for the blended family. Like, it's great if people are like, hey, they're really coming in and really trying to help and support you, but it's your family. You're the only one that's going to know the day in, day out, everyday needs of that family. Each child, what the children are feeling, what the exes are bringing to the relationship or putting in the child's mind, all of that stuff. You are the only one that knows. So you really do have to set healthy boundaries with that. And your spouse and you are the ones that should be making the decisions for the family, not me coming back to Josh and saying, well, I talked to my mom and my mom thinks that we should blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. That's the boundary.
That's a boundary. Like, if I have an issue with something, number one, I should be talking to him about it first before I'm going to talk to my mom or my dad or anyone else. Yeah, or my sisters or anyone else. But if I'm going to someone, him and I have talked about it first, and we both agree, like, man, we don't know. We really don't know. And then I'm in conversation with someone about it, and I talk to them about it, that has a blended family. I mean, that should be number one, and that's Christian. And then they give me some advice, and then I come back and say, hey, remember that thing that you and I are frustrated about? Well, I was talking to so-and-so who has a blended family and is a Christian. And this is some of the things they said, and it worked for them. Do you think it would work for us, or do you want to try it? Then we can talk about it. That's when we can talk about it. But everyone will come in and say, well, that's not fair. You should get this. Or the ex will come in and say, that's not fair. I should get this. And that you cannot allow that. You can't, as much as possible, allow it to affect your mood of your family when they're together. Josh and I ended up getting really good at that very early on.
We did.
About setting boundaries, and him and I making sure that we were on the same page with what was going to be in our family and what was not going to be in our family. What we would allow in our unit, our bubble, when all the kids were at our house, and what we would not allow. And we made that very clear to the kids too. Well, I'm sorry that your mom said this about us, but that's not going to be talked about here, and that's not going to be accepted here. Yep. I'm sorry that your dad thinks this about us, but that's not going to affect us, and we're not going to let it affect us. So you have to but that starts again with the marriage about that.
Yeah. I think it's important, though, you understand with the boundary thing is that boundaries don't mean you have to completely block somebody out.
No.
Doesn't mean, and I understand people really struggle with conflict resolution. We've talked a lot about this on our show, and that people they have a really hard time with conflict resolution. They're either all in or all out, and that's not right. Okay. You have to get good at setting healthy boundaries, which means for the ladies. Okay. And you have sisters and you have a mom, and now you married somebody new. Okay. And your moms and your mom and your sisters are very opinionated, and they're like, don't you let that man do this. Don't you? That's your kid. That's your child. You don't do these things. And then they were like, want to tell you how it's supposed to be and how it's not supposed to be. And what ends up happening is whether they're right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It ends up affecting your relationship because now you're not really consulting your spouse anymore. Now you're consulting your mom or your sisters about what should and shouldn't happen. Now, whether there is something right or wrong happening, thank you for the information, mom or sisters. I'm going to go talk to my husband about these things and we'll get this straightened around. And then we'll have a healthy conversation with your husband about your feelings and not about what your mom told you or what your sister told you. And that's what we mean by boundaries. I mean, that can be extrapolated to so many things within a blended family. That can be men allowing their ex-wives to breathe into their marriage, okay? Because my ex-wife really tried to do that a lot. She tried to butt her nose in. She tried to do a lot of them things. And if any of you guys out there have an ex-wife like me, okay, she has an endless tank of drama and she can last and last and last and wears me down. And like most guys, I'm just like, I don't care. And what ends up happening with that is it ends up affecting us because ultimately it's affecting her. And so what I had to do is I had to, first off, I had to learn how to stand up for myself and say, okay, it's enough of that. Okay. Not everything's affecting you in your household or what's going on in my household. And at one point I finally had to turn everything over and just say, you want to talk to me? You can talk to Christy. And she did not like that.
That's not going to work for everybody.
It's not going to work for everybody. I'm just telling you what worked for us. And that was a boundary that I needed. I needed this boundary. And I finally was like, because she would take me to a certain level that it wasn't healthy. And I'm like, okay, I can't deal with this woman. I can't. And it ended up turning bad every time. So I'm like, okay, I have to understand boundaries. And that's our point of the boundaries. Okay. Well, that's our point of the boundaries. You have to understand how to set them.
Yes. And a lot of people think, and if you don't remember anything else about setting healthy boundaries, you need to remember this one thing. A lot of people think that when you're about to set a healthy boundary, that you're supposed to call the other person and let them know that you're setting a boundary and you're not going to let them cross it anymore. You do not do that. Okay, the boundary is in your mind. Okay?
And in your marriage.
And in your marriage.
Yes.
And so when the person starts crossing that boundary, you don't tell them you're crossing my boundary. Blah, 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 blah. You don't tell them all that.
That's bad.
You gradually start to back yourself out of those situations. You just don't talk to them about that specific thing anymore. If they want to bring it up to you, say it's going fine. Like you set the boundary. You don't tell them about the boundary because it's just going to tick them off. Yeah. All of those things. That's your responsibility. So that's why a lot of people have a hard time with healthy boundaries because all of the work and all the responsibility falls on you, not the other person.
Yeah.
So you're the one that has to work on it. You're the one that has to keep it. You're the one that has to make sure it's not crossed without talking to the other person.
Yeah, because you can't change people.
No.
You can only change.
So that's why healthy boundaries are so hard. And that's why a lot of people get them wrong is because it's not the other person. It's you. It's all the work is on you.
Yeah. How well would that be if you called up your mom and said, oh, Mom, by the way, I have a new boundary I'm setting and just sorry I have to have them with you.
Yeah.
Mama's going to be like, oh, I don't think so, my darling.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I want you to set that boundary as high as you can. I dare you.
Yeah.
And so that becomes a major issue.
Or literally people think they have to say it. Like you're on the phone with them the next time and they're doing something. It's like, oh, I just let you know, I'm setting a boundary and you're not going to be allowed to cross this boundary anymore. That just doesn't work.
Asking
because
for
that's
it.
Actually putting the work on the other person. You're thinking because you're telling the other person that this is a boundary, that they're not going to cross it anymore, that actually challenges that person to that boundary. And I've heard of so many people doing that. And I'm like, you don't do that. You don't do that. Yeah. That's not how any of this works. That's not how it works.
So Cassie goes, we tried that. Bad idea.
You don't.
It is bad.
With any healthy boundary in any relationship at all, you never tell the person. It hurts their feelings or it challenges them to like just annihilate the boundary.
And Stacey, you would do that with your mother. Mom and your mom would be like, no, I don't think so. No, that's not going to work for me.
I veto your boundary and I see you a different boundary.
Yeah. Right. You need to put a boundary around him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the third one is boundaries. And it's so important that you understand boundaries and how to set them in a healthy way. So that's number 3. Number 4, right? We have to understand how to parent together.
Yes.
How to parent together.
Parent together, but parent apart. No, I'm kidding. So you have to parent together, and that also comes back to the healthiness of the marriage
Yep.
and the relationship.
Always.
You want to discuss what's going to be like my feelings about disrespect may be different than what his feelings are of disrespect. And a lot of fights in marriages can come, this is just one example, but a lot of fights in marriages, we could get in a lot of fights about something, but not even actually address the problem, because he could be super frustrated with my kids because in his mind, he's disrespecting them, but in my mind, they aren't. And I know a lot of these things, people are like, how can that be? You'd be surprised if you sit down with your spouse and you talk about things that really tick him off or are pet peeves of his are not pet peeves of mine. And I would, because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't think about things that you don't think about. And that's why parenting together is so, so, so important, because if I came home from work one day and he's like, I grounded your kids today for 2 weeks because they, didn't put the dishes away that I wanted them to put away. I told them how to put the dishes away. They didn't do it correctly, so I grounded them for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I would be like, did they put the dishes away?
Yeah.
And if he said, yeah, I'd be like, then they're not grounded.
Yeah.
Like you asked them to put the dishes away, but his mind, if he is taught, and this didn't happen.
Because that's the way my kids would be, let's just say, that situation.
Yeah. So I'm just making this decision up. So if he's like, if I went through and I showed them exactly where everything went, they purposely didn't do it that way because they're being defiant, then I think that they should be grounded. And that could be his process in his brain.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
So in my brain, I would be like, you told the children to put dishes away. You had to tell them one time, and you left for the day. You came back, the dishes were put away. Problem solved.
Yeah.
If they were put away wrong, bring them back out and say, hey guys, thank you so much for putting the dishes away. And then you just show them where they go again. And I'm just fabricating this whole thing. Maybe his kids, he only had to show them one time ever, and they always have done it. So those things do need to be discussed, because if he's punishing my kids when I'm not home, or I'm doing different punishments for different things than he's doing, that could cause massive issues in our marriage, because we would never divorce our kids. Right? So some people think in the back of their mind, even the kids think, I'm not going anywhere. The kids may not 100% know that, but people typically know.
Well, it's an ownership thing to them.
The parent and the kids are always.
They're a package.
Marriages obviously can dissolve because we've been divorced before. Right? So you always are trying to make sure that your marriage is together, because you and your kids is without question. Never. So you always have to make sure parenting decisions, because if it came down to where your spouse was doing something against your kids that you didn't like continuously all the time, it would be an issue. There would be an issue, and the issue would be with you two, not with the kids.
Yeah, I remember in the beginning of our relationship, I remember Christy, this was something we had to work out, okay? For instance, in the beginning, she would tell her kids not to do something, and if they said anything back, she would get upset with them. Me, if my kids, I asked them not to do something, we would then have a discussion about it, and she'd get really upset about that. She'd be like, why do you let your kids argue with you?
Too long of a discussion.
Right. What? See, she still feels that way. And that's the thing, right? So that was the big difference. We had to really
debate is more of the word.
Yeah. And so I was okay with that, right? And she wasn't okay with that. And so, so we had to come to some type of agreement on that stuff, over the years. And we have. We actually have.
Yeah.
I've really gotten better about not so much of a, discussion about everything, but enough discussion. And she's gotten to where now she gives some discussion.
Yeah.
But ultimately the answer is the answer. We're not changing the answer. I'm just giving you the definition. It's basically what it is. And I'm okay with that. And she's okay with that. Mm-hmm. So now when we get into these discussions with our children at this point, it's like, we're fine. Like it's fine now.
Yeah.
But that's the point, right? So we have to understand how to become too healthy in parenting. If I try to parent her kids the way that I parent my kids, it's not going to work. Right? Almost never does it work the same always, right? So it's good to get together and talk about these different things together. And one of the major things that I really want to talk about in this specifically is when it comes to handing down punishment. Okay? A lot of times people think, well, that's my child. I know how to punish that child. Okay, you probably do, and that's fair. But this is the thing that's going to make your family strong, okay? Is I'm not going to punish you, child. I know you're my child. I'm not punishing you. I'm going to talk to Christy first, and then we will let you know what the punishment is.
Mhm.
You go behind closed doors. You guys discuss it, okay? Even if Christy looks at me and goes, it's your kid, whatever you want to do, right? Doesn't matter. The kid doesn't know that. And then we go back out together, and I, the bio parent, then tell my child, this is what we talked about, and this is what we decided upon. And I tell the child, my child. That is proper parenting in a blended family. I'm still punishing my kid, but they know that we're parenting together. And there's so much value in that.
In the beginning.
In the beginning, right. Of course, in the beginning.
Because him and I have been together for 11 years now. So now, and not that our kids, I mean, they're older now. But after like 6 or 7 years, if he wasn't home or something, I had earned that respect.
Doing it this way.
Yeah. Yes. It had been earned by the child too.
Yep.
I had earned the child's respect, Josh or Jordan. And I would say, like, hey, you're going to be grounded. You're going to have your phone taken away or things like that. And there would be no discussion about it because they already knew it. But this is a good way to bridge that gap.
Yep.
And again, this could be part of the time, like when you're going and spending alone time with your bio kids, that you could give them an opportunity to ask more questions or to be upset about a punishment that maybe was handed down together by the two of you, and you to more solidify it to them while you're alone with them. That will also help them accept that things aren't going to change based on their relationship with you. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. We're not bullying you, or it's not the step parent that made that decision and I just came out and delivered it, or because they're coercing the situation. Nothing like that. It's, we want to do this together. We want to love you. I, of course, love you. I'm your mom or I'm your dad.
Yeah.
But this is going to be another person in your life that you're going to be able to depend on, that they're going to be here to support you. I'm not asking you to love them. I'm asking you to respect them, eventually maybe get up to the point where you like them, but you're going to learn that you can depend on them and that they're going to be supportive to you. They're not replacing your dad or your mom or any of that, that they're just going to be, we have coined the term, I'm a parental figure in this home, I think I did, I am also a parental person in this home and, all this stuff.
You'll respect me accordingly.
Right. So it's just what works for your family, but you definitely need to parent together. You guys need to know what, each parent considers important and which one doesn't. I used to, when my kids were younger, and I don't think Josh even ever had a problem with this, but if I asked my kids to do something, if they were mad about it and they stomped around while they did it, I didn't care because they were mad. And I thought, they're allowed to be mad. They're doing something that they don't want to do. They're angry about it. They need to work through their feelings. They're not being disrespectful to me. They're not telling me no. They're doing the punishment or the chore that I'm asking them to do. They're not breaking anything. They're just mad, but they're doing it. So to me, I thought that was fine. Well, it could have been a point where he would have been like, that is completely unacceptable.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
But to me, it's like a person, like my parents growing up, that they would be harsh with me if I started crying, they'd spank me for crying.
Yeah.
That's what I related that to in my head. Like, okay, you're carrying out, Mom, what you've asked me to do. I'm super upset about it, but I'm still doing it. So now I'm going to my mom's going to punish me because I did what she wanted me to do. I was just mad about it. And that's the way I correlated it in my brain. And it doesn't mean that your spouse is going to make that connection.
No, and that's why talking these things out made such a big difference in our marriage, because to me, I'm like, if this kid's doing this, they're being disrespectful, and disrespect's really huge for me. Yeah. So when we had to sit down and actually discuss these things, then a lot of it started to make sense, and then we're not really battling each other. And that's why we bring up this point. It's really about growing the strength in your marriage, because then you can appropriate. Yeah, then you can appropriate the way that your energy flows to your children, because now you don't feel like I need to protect my child from this. No, because you have say-so in the whole thing. Yeah. Now we're just trying to...
understanding.
Yeah, or understanding, right. But that's the point, though, is you parent together. And the value of that, it gets passed on to your kids, and it strengthens your marriage. So parent together is number 4. Number 5. Number 5 is create a unique family system. And how can you do that?
Well, I mean, like we said earlier, every blended family specifically is going to have its own little nuances and stuff that work. You guys are going to need to figure out what works for your family. Like we had my kids pretty much all the time. They went to their dad's every other weekend for a few years, and then they stopped going a few years back. They just went whenever, like visit him. But we had my kids all the time and only didn't have them every other weekend. And Josh's kids were gone typically 2 to 3 days a week. So we had to come up with like a family fun night that would be on a night when all of us were together and it was something special. But we also understood that it, like ours just so happened that it could fall on a Friday night because we always had all the kids on every other Friday when my kids weren't so we did it every other Friday. That's right. And we did it before my kids left to go to their dads or something like that. But we also understood that when like Josh's kids were coming back from the ex's house, it wasn't on the same day that they were coming back because they needed, like, let's say they came back on a Thursday. We're not going to have family fun night on Thursday because the kids need a decompression time. They need an adjustment time because when they would go to their moms, things were ran differently at their moms than they were at our house. And kids do need an adjustment period when they're coming back from that, especially when it's coming from a non-Christian home to a Christian home and a single parent household to a dual parent household. It's different and they need an adjustment period, and they'd wait 24 hours and it's like they would be completely different kids. You know, they would be a complete 180 from when they first got to our house. So it just so happened that it fell on a Friday night and then we could play games together, and it was new tradition that we had. We used to do a devotional with all the kids together, and then we would eat dinner and then we'd play a game, type of thing. And then gradually we found out what the favorite game was, and we usually played that, which was freeze tag in the dark. So
yeah. And it's important that you understand, like, your family that you used to have, this family is going to be different, and that's okay. You want it to be, and that's a good thing. Once you grasp and understand, like, I want to create, our desire is to create a unique family system here, something that's different than before, that it's a new blend, it's a new recipe, and you can start now adding in your new traditions, right? Make sure that people, all the children have new roles, maybe because their ages, maybe the way that they fall, their order within the children, like Garrett, Christy's oldest, his order changed. Like, those roles and rules, all those things changed, and that's okay. Embrace that, so you can create this whole new family structure and know that it's unique, and embrace the uniqueness to that. It took us a little bit for that. We keep trying to fit into this mold of something that's just not possible. And then we have these weird expectations of ourselves, of our marriage, and of our children. And it's just uncomfortable and it's broken. So once we realized, that's okay for this to be unique and we want it to be unique, then we were able to start all new Christmas traditions, Thanksgiving traditions, birthday traditions, Easter traditions, like all these things. And then on top of that, family fun night, all of this different stuff. Once we started embracing that, it really helped the blending thing happen much quicker, actually.
Well, and what helps it your family blend better too is accepting the reality of situations. Like, what I can't stand is when people are like, those aren't his kids, those are my kids. Like, it's not his, it's ours. And that's actually making the child or making other people seem like being a step kid or being a blended family is wrong. And it's not wrong. Like, his kids are not biologically my kids, but I am their stepmom and I do love them and I will always be there for them. And they can call me stepmom and I can say stepkid, and it's okay because it's all about making that word bad or good.
Yep.
It's about the perception that you put on it in your family. If you are constantly like, no, we're one, we're a family, we're this, that's like an illusion that you're trying. And it actually, maybe the kid doesn't feel that way because the reality of the situation is you're not that kid's biological parent. You're not. But if you make that a bad thing, if you make it a good thing, like, hey, I'm a bonus mom, or I'm a bonus dad, or I'm a bonus, the kid might not even be comfortable with that word yet. Like, I'm a bonus adult in your life, that I'm here, that you're going to learn, that you can depend on, and I'm going to support you, and I'm going to be here for you if you need help studying for school or you need a ride somewhere, or I'm just going to be this extra person for you to be, watching out for you in your life. and it's good. There isn't anything wrong with that. I just can't stand it when people make it out to be bad that we say step. I've had actually multiple people throughout the years be like, I can't believe you say that's your stepkid.
That's mean.
I'm like, it's not a bad thing in our household. It's never been a bad thing in our household. So I guess it's just always about what you make that word in your house. I mean, if you've made that word bad or dirty word to them, then your family may feel that way. But to us, it's not. It's the reality situation. It's a good thing.
I've had people correct me.
Yeah. I've had people correct me too.
Yeah. Oh, when I say, oh, my stepkids, they're like, oh, no, you mean your kids? And I don't argue because they're not part of my family unit, just like Christy's saying. It's our unique family system. It works for us. It's not a bad thing. We've never treated it like a bad thing. No. The kids are comfortable with it. Yeah. We're comfortable with it. Yeah. It's fine. And so, and we've asked our kids, do you have a problem? Like Christy's boys still call me Big Josh. And let me tell you, people, I am no longer the big Josh.
He's the littlest one.
I am the little Josh, okay? All these boys are much bigger than me. My son is way bigger than I am. I am pushing 5'9", and he is pushing over 6'1". So it's just like, I am not. So, but they're comfortable with that. All their friends call me Big Josh. Yeah. It's just how it is. Yeah. I don't care. Nobody needs to call me dad. The only person that calls me dad is my daughter and my son. I'm okay with that. And everybody else is okay with it. So you understand that, when you're creating this whole family structure, that you want it to be unique. You want it to be individualized for what you have. And that makes it special. And then that makes it feel like it's a good start over for everybody, and that they all get a specific role and part in the design of it too. So it's just important. So let's go as a way of review. Let's talk about the 5 things real quick. Let's jump through them. Number 1 is go slow to grow fast. Remember that you are not a microwave, you're a crock pot. So it's going to take some time for you to blend. Number 2 is priorities. Make sure your marriage is a priority, but you choose to focus your energy and your time on your children. Number 3 is boundaries. Remember, it's not just about boundaries with the kids, it's boundaries with your exes and boundaries with your extended family. Number 4, parent together. Understand that you have to choose to parent together behind closed doors so you can parent together appropriately to your children. Number 5, create a unique family system that's going to be unique and strong for you and your family. Anything you want to add before we close it up?
Nope.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. We probably won't be this dark next time you see us. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.